these two cars have in common? Each is powered by something other than gasoline, methanol. Methanol is now being tested by General Motors as an alternative to gasoline.
At some point in the future, and none of us knows when, it may become necessary to begin to use other fuels. And we obviously need to be ready in advance of that possibility.
Right now, the United States depends on gasoline to power most of our cars and trucks, but supplies could become limited, so the search is on for an alternative fuel.
We are very interested in exploring the use of alternative fuels, and it's important because our country is so dependent on petroleum for transportation.
Well, of the alternative fuels, methanol looks like it's going to be the one that's most easily implemented from the standpoint of the vehicle and the way the customer wants to use his vehicle.
The continued availability of gasoline and, in some areas, air quality concerns are making alternative fuels a key issue. Yet many questions need to be answered before we'll see these alternatives at the local pump. It has been said that to find fresh thinking on a problem, turn to college students. That is exactly what General Motors, Energy Mines and Resources Canada, the U.S. Department of Energy, and the Society of Automotive Engineers did when they sponsored an alternative fuels competition among universities called the Methanol Marathon. Nearly 200 engineering students from 15 colleges and universities in the U.S. and Canada would compete for a share of $20,000 in prizes. Each team was invited to the General Motors Technical Center last fall and given a new Chevrolet Corsica and a kit containing key replacement parts to convert their cars to run on a blend of 85% methanol and 15% gasoline. Their final exams would be in startability, emissions, acceleration, driving performance, oral presentation, and on the quality of the conversion. They also would earn points from an 1,100-mile road rally. The rally would take them from Detroit through Toronto, New York City, and end in College Park, Maryland. The marathon and rally would not only give practical engineering experience to the students, but would also provide valuable information on how methanol performs under real-world conditions.
We want to make sure there's an alternative to petroleum, so we'll be ready to implement this kind of technology in case there's ever a need for it. Of course, on a more down-to-earth level, we are training the future leaders of the auto industry here.
With the Methanol Marathon, we have over 200 of the finest engineering students in North America attacking the problem of a practical application for methanol fuel in today's vehicles.
We think it's a great opportunity to show them about the type of careers we have in automotive today. They'll get some hands-on experience working with the engine, fuel system, learning a great deal about it. Secondly, it's an opportunity for us to learn more about the fuel methanol. How does it burn? How do our engines operate on it? What kind of emissions do we have? What kind of fuel economy do we get? So overall, it's a learning experience on both sides.
After receiving the keys to their cars and checks to cover the cost of conversion, the students headed back to school. They wasted little time and rapidly performed the basic conversion, then spent 5 months testing and modifying their cars even further. The ability of the student engineers to overcome some of methanol's drawbacks would be graded heavily in the rally.
One of the major drawbacks of methanol right now is that your driving range would be essentially cut in half.
In addition to half the fuel economy of gasoline, methanol has several other major problems. It tends to vaporize in cold weather, which makes cold starting difficult. And while methanol-fueled vehicles emit fewer hydrocarbons, they emit more aldehydes, and the air quality benefits will depend on the degree to which these emissions can be controlled cost-effectively.
We're hoping for an innovative and practical breakthrough from some young engineering mind to help us tackle some of the problems we see in our potential fleet applications of methanol.
The students used all the testing devices at their disposal to fine-tune their theories.
We use the dynamometer to check and see how our fuel efficiency is doing for the car. So the more fuel efficiency we can squeeze out of a methanol engine, the better it will be for the consumer and for the general public as well.
Some developed sophisticated computer models to analyze the results of their tests.
We're learning practical applications of automotive engineering that most students don't get a chance to participate in a school atmosphere.
Gives us a chance to do some engineering work, you know, without being in class. Get a chance to work on something real instead of something out of a book.
Converting the Corsicas to run on methanol was more than a mechanical exercise. The students learned the importance of working as a team.
Although each person has had a little part, we all need to keep sight of the big picture, communicate with one another as to how our part is going, and communicate with the other people. And so we all sort of keep converging on the same goal and get there at the same time.
Probably the biggest growing experience that they've had has been associated with working together as a team and recognizing that you have to rely on other people.
A colorful fleet of methanol-converted Corsicas returned to the Tech Center on April 28th for final testing before the green flag would drop the next day on the road rally.
Now, this is probably the greatest experience any one of our students in our student chapter has ever had, to get out there and really do something, a real engineering challenge.
I'm cautiously optimistic that we will finish, and that's a big part of the battle. Usually a third to half the field doesn't finish in these kinds of competitions. So I guess I'd like to see us finish. If we finish, we'll be happy.
Before the rally began, the student team's work was judged for acceleration, noise, emissions, cold starting, and overall conversion design and fabrication. Over half of the points in the competition would be awarded on technical presentations made to a panel of tough auto industry engineers.
What we've done here is gone with very easy, simple modifications that are very cost-effective for General Motors to perform for their online assembly. We have a timer circuitry back here.
How'd you measure that?
Less than half of the points would be earned on the road rally itself. The remainder would be awarded based on the results of these qualifying events. The students responded to the challenge.
I'm glad I've done the project. It's been a lot of hard work. We've had a group working there day and night for the last 3 months, making sure it was all ready to go and get out here in time to compete.
GM President Bob Stempel reminded the students of the importance of their work.
This is another ongoing step in our field test of alternate fuels. And we are testing at General Motors several of those alternates, including electric cars, fuel cells, liquid and gaseous fuels, including methanol. Now, right now, methanol looks like one of the most likely candidates for success from the view of performance, cost, and availability. Now, the Marathon is an important part of the ongoing methanol development program. Now, the challenge that the 15 cars will encounter during their 1,100-mile journey through Ontario, New York, and on to Washington, D.C. will really be a valuable source of information on how methanol performs in real-world conditions.
Going through the whole process from start to finish has helped us learn what's going to happen in the future and how things are going to work as engineers in the future when we have to get out and do it in the real world.
I think they've done a heck of a job on their cars, and this is what they've been working for 5 months. They've been losing sleep, missing classes, and now they're here, and I think the excitement level has really picked up. I know mine has.
The next morning, the teams assembled in front of Chevrolet headquarters in Warren, Michigan. Shortly after 8 a.m., the green flag dropped and the road rally was officially underway. It was an international event that took the teams across the Canadian border for the first leg of the journey. During the competition, the teams and cars were tested for fuel economy and rally times. Combined scores from all of the marathon categories will determine the winner. After 2 days of rallying, the University of Tennessee led the pack.
So far, with the number of events that come in, we're pleased with the results, but there's a lot of points still out there, so we've got all our fingers crossed.
The cars and the students refueled along the way, pausing to unwind from the rigors of the road. By the time they reached Utica, New York, the teams had been able to assess their concepts and to see how methanol was performing.
The only difference you could see is the fact that they have a little bit more performance than a regular vehicle does.
So far, it seems to have a lot of advantages to it. We're getting good fuel economy, and it burns cleaner, so I think it'll be a good alternate fuel.
Well, it's pretty much the same as driving the one back home. The only difference right now is we're driving it really easy, taking it real easy, trying to get the best fuel economy we can.
From the design perspective, we've got some good points and some bad points relevant to using of methanol. But I think methanol, as stated in many publications, it looks like one of the possible alternatives, and one of the reasons we're working on it is to see if that's really true, and this activity is helping.
I don't think we're saying that methanol is the answer, but it could certainly be one of the answers, and we think it's important for these young people to get involved with it early on.
Some of the team members were surprised to see how lush upstate New York was.
I think when you talk about New York down in Tennessee, you probably have an image of wall-to-wall buildings, and I'm sure we'll see that before we get finished.
The next morning, the teams arrived at the Javits Convention Center in New York City. GM's chairman, Roger Smith, was on hand to welcome the students.
So far, so good.
You're halfway through, right? And you'd rather be in first than last, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, keep it up and I'll watch and see how you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Don Runkle, the vice president in charge of GM's advanced engineering staff, talked to them about the impact their efforts will have on the potential use of methanol.
I think we sponsored this event as just one of our steps of an ongoing field test in the area of alternate fuels. As our president said to many of you, Bob Stempel, last week at the start of the race, gasoline is still the preferred motor fuel and probably remain so for some time, but at some point in the future, it may be necessary to begin using some alternates.
He then invited some of the students up to meet the press.
The most significant thing was having to work with the team. I mean, there were times where one member on the team would be standing for his idea and what he wanted to do. They had to prove their idea, and that's just an invaluable experience, I think.
One of the things that's impressed me is the teamwork of any teams who have had a problem. The team rallies together and attacks the problem as a group and have solved their problems and got back on the road very quickly.
After the press conference, it was time to get back on the road. The students caravan to the CPC plant in Linden, New Jersey. There, the rally would begin again. At the plant, they got a chance to see how the cars they were driving are built. The rally continued on to Wilmington, Delaware, where the final leg of the rally would begin the next day. The next morning in Wilmington, the teams had another opportunity to see how GM cars are made, and employees had the chance to meet the students and hear about the event.
This is a plus for the corporation, a plus for the facility here, and a plus for our product.
It's a step towards the future. It's technology is here, the technology is going to stay, and all these things that we're looking at today and things that we're doing now to prepare ourselves for tomorrow is what it's all about. Methanol is something that could come to be.
It was time for the last leg of the road rally. This part of the event would take the teams through the back roads of Maryland to the finish line in College Park.
Coming in for a landing.
The intensity of the competition was clear at each of the checkpoints. The students pressed on to the checkered flag. At the finish line, the preparations were complete and the anticipation was high. Finally, the first car came over the line. Within minutes, the road rally was complete. All the teams had finished.
It's great. The experience of having to work with the other students to build the car was probably the best part of it for me.
It just strengthens my interest in it. There's so much out there to do yet, and we upcoming engineers, we're the new people who are going to have to make new things happen.
What's impressed me is the variety of different ways of attacking the same problem, such as cold start. I've seen about 6 or 7 varieties of ways to conquer cold start problems.
We're obviously not experts, but we might come up with a really ingenious idea that the automotive manufacturers may be able to use. But I think one of the most important things is it exposes engineering students like myself to these problems and gets us interested and motivated about them.
The University of Tennessee was still ahead on rally points, but the scores for the technical presentations, counting for half of the possible score, were still not in. The students knew that a team could win the rally, yet lose the overall competition. The results would be announced the next morning at an awards ceremony on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Framed by the Capitol Dome, the student teams lined up their cars and assembled to hear the results. Most hadn't realized how seriously this event was being taken. But after hearing from several senators, members of Congress, and government and corporate officials, it was clear they had been part of something worthwhile.
So we congratulate everybody. The country's a winner because of the work you're doing. Canada's a winner because of the work you're doing. And certainly each of you are winners. Let's continue this race, and let's be the first, our two countries, Canada and the United States, the first winners to give the world a meaningful alternative fuel.
General Motors is proud to announce that we're donating the 15 Chevrolet Corsicas that these teams used in this event so that they could take them home to their universities, and we hope they'll continue to use those to experiment and the use of alternate fuels and to continue to further their education.
And what has happened in this competition is extremely exciting. Young people have taken the lead. The kids who have been participating in this marathon are showing the whole country that it can be done.
Then the awards were handed out.
First place winner is the University of Tennessee.
We're all seniors, we're graduating, and it's just a great thing to be able to participate in such an event, you know, your last year in college, and it really makes you feel good.
We came in hoping to do our best, but I think deep down none of us really expected to win. I mean, I know I didn't, so we're really happy about it.
The marathon hasn't answered all the questions about methanol. General Motors has been working with methanol since 1982. But it is clear that the ultimate winners will be the public, as General Motors continues to work with universities and governments to explore the use of alternative fuels.